Have you ever wondered if the woman next door with the HOA badge was actually running a secret empire of fear? What if those aesthetic covenants were just a front for something far more sinister? And what if your beloved classic truck, the one holding every memory of a fallen brother in arms, was the spark that lit the fuse on her entire house of cards? Chestnut Grove looked like every other picture-perfect American suburb on the surface. Identical beige houses, lawns clipped with military precision, and signs everywhere reminding you that community standards are everyone's responsibility. Ethan Brooks, had just retired from 12 years as an MP and wanted nothing more than quiet mornings and the rumble of my 1972 cherry red Ford F-100 in the driveway. That truck wasn't just metal and rubber. It was the weekends Tommy and I spent yanking rust buckets from junkyards, turning them into thunder with our own hands before he never made it home. Every time that V8 growled, I could still hear him laughing. But in Linda Hargrove's kingdom, my truck was public enemy number one. The afternoon it all started felt like any other, blistering sun turning the blacktop into a skillet. I was waxing the hood when Linda came strutting up the driveway, clipboard clutched like a royal decree, her husband Derek trailing behind like a trained lapdog. She wore that fake polite smile that always made my skin crawl. "Ethan, darling," she cooed, voice dripping honey and venom. "We really must discuss this vehicle. It's in gross violation of our covenants. No visible classics allowed. Understand?" I wiped my hands on a rag, keeping my tone flat the way the Army taught me when dealing with tyrants who wore smiles. "Linda, it's parked in my own driveway. Last I checked, that's still America. Or did the HOA rewrite the Constitution while I was overseas?" Derek smirked, adjusting his ridiculous gold watch. "The board empowered us to act, Ethan. We can have it towed to the impound lot tonight if you refuse to comply. Rules protect us all." Linda dangled her master key like a trophy. "Just let us relocate it for you." She jammed the key into my custom lock anyway. The metal snapped with a pathetic crunch that echoed down the street. Her face flushed crimson, the first crack in her queen bee armor. Then, in a moment so ridiculous I almost laughed out loud despite the rage boiling in my chest, she swung that thick clipboard like a baseball bat. It connected with the fender in a sharp crack, leaving a long, ugly white scar right across Tommy's memory. "Oops," she said, batting her lashes like she'd dropped a teacup. "Look what you made me do." I didn't yell. Any shout ever could. She grabbed her phone, voice cracking on cue like a bad soap opera actress. 911. "Yes, my neighbor at 142 Oak Lane is threatening me. He's a very large veteran. He's become violent. I'm scared for my life. I'm only the HOA president trying to do my job." Sirens wailed 10 minutes later, painting the beige houses red and blue. Linda launched into her performance, tears flowing on demand, pointing a trembling finger at me. Derek piled on the lies. "He charged us, officer." Pure rage. The younger cop looked ready to cuff me on the spot. I stepped forward slowly, hands visible. "Sergeant, everything's on my porch camera. High def, time-stamped. From the second she touched my truck until that fake call." The sergeant watched the footage twice on my phone. Linda's smug mask melted faster than ice cream in July. The video showed the key snapping, her clipboard swing, the hysterical 911 lies. Every single frame crystal clear. The sergeant's voice went ice cold. "And filing a false police report. Both felonies." The cuffs clicked around Linda's wrists right there on my driveway. Derek's jaw hit the pavement. "You can't do this. We have friends on the city council." The officers didn't blink. They marched her to the cruiser while she hissed one last promise at me through the window. "This isn't over, Ethan." Not by a long shot. I stood there watching the taillights disappear, that white scratch on my fender glowing under the streetlights. For one sweet moment, I thought the nightmare was finished. The neighborhood busybodies even whispered, "Good for him," behind their perfect hedges. But Linda made bail before the sun came up the next morning. Derek's money and connections worked overtime, and the real war was just getting started. 2 nights later, I came home from the store to find my brand new tire slashed clean through the sidewall, 6 inches of deliberate rage. No note, no random vandalism. This was a message. The next day on the highway, the brakes went spongy for a split second, pedal sinking too far before catching. My heart slammed against my ribs. But the cold dread told me different. Then the fine started raining down like hail. $750 for excessive visual pollution, $400 for a hairline driveway crack that had been there since I bought the house, another $250 for unruly vehicle noise, even though the damn thing was parked. It was death by 1,000 pieces of paper, designed to bleed me dry and break me. I sat on my porch one evening watching Mr. Patterson, the retired mailman next door, nervously trimming his garden gnomes. He glanced around like the hedges had ears. They came to me. Ethan, he whispered. Derek said if I kept talking to you, they'd file for Adult Protective Services. Claim I'm senile, take my house. I'm 82, son. That was the moment it stopped being about my truck or my money. It became about protecting a good man from wolves wearing HOA name tags. I turned my dining room into a war room. Nights were spent combing public records, property sales, HOA filings. A pattern screamed out. Over the last 3 years, 15 families had been hammered with identical fine storms, then forced to sell cheap to the same shell company, Oak Ridge Holdings, LLC. The registered agent? Derek Hargrove. The PO led me to a stakeout where I watched Derek himself empty the mail with that same gaudy gold watch flashing under the fluorescent lights. The pieces clicked. Linda's rulebook was the weapon, Derek's shell company the getaway car, and somewhere a corrupt councilman was feeding them inside info about a massive new shopping mall project that would explode property values once announced. They weren't just bullying neighbors. They were stealing homes for millions. My old army buddy Deacon got the call that night. I need a ghost, Deke. Chuckled on the other end. Sounds like fun. The trap was pure poetry, built from their own ridiculous rulebook. I submitted a formal request to the architectural committee, which was just Linda and Derek, to paint my house metallic purple with racing stripes and install a 10-foot chrome eagle statue on the lawn. They demanded an immediate in-person meeting at my place the next evening. While I kept them arguing about aerodynamic eagles, Deacon slipped through their back door like smoke. He cloned Derek's desktop in under 20 minutes, grabbed every bank transfer, every purchase agreement, every email to Councilman Reynolds about the secret mall. The real bombshell, emails admitting they'd already planned to arrange an unfortunate brake failure on the highway if I didn't fold. Attempted murder on company letterhead. I stared at the screen in my garage, the truck's chrome gleaming under the work lights, that ugly white scratch still staring back at me like a challenge. This wasn't about rules anymore. The fact that these people had calmly decided to put me in the ground to protect their scam. But I wasn't going to hand the evidence to the cops and let them disappear behind lawyers. They'd made it personal, and scarred Tommy's truck and plotted my death. They deserved to watch their empire burn in public. The final act began with a handwritten for sale sign I taped in the truck window. $12,000 cash, today only. Insultingly low for a fully restored classic. Derek's greed couldn't resist. Disguised voice, of course. Still available? He asked, trying to sound casual. I played the broken man perfectly. HOA circus. Meet me tomorrow night at the old business park office off Route 9. Cash only. I'm just tired. The rented office smelled like stale coffee and desperation. I sat behind a cheap metal desk with a folder of fake title papers. In the parking lot, Deacon monitored every camera angle. At 7 sharp, the door opened. Case. Linda right behind him, arms crossed like she still owned the world. He dropped the case on the desk with a heavy thud. Keys and title. I slid the shell company printouts across instead. Let's talk first. Goes to a good home, one that doesn't involve slashed tires or cut brake lines. Linda's eyes narrowed. Color. I kept my voice calm, almost friendly. I have the bank records moving HOA money into your shell company. I have the purchase agreements. Councilman Reynolds about the mall project that's about to make you both millionaires, right after you forced everyone else out. Oh, and the part where you two discussed making my brake failure look like an accident? That's on video too. Derek laughed, a nervous, broken sound. Linda whirled on him. Vesting. The confession poured out like pus from a wound. Derek admitted everything. The fines were engineered, the tire slash was a warning, the brake tampering was the real plan. You were in the way, he spat. And the problem solved itself. That was the moment, mister. Pulled through the speaker I'd left open, right on cue. Police are 2 minutes out, Ethan. Chaos exploded. The desk with a letter opener she'd snatched, eyes wild. Derek charged like a cornered animal. Years of training took over. I sidestepped, pinned him, and watched Deacon step through the door like a wall of muscle. The letter opener clattered to the floor. Sirens screamed outside. They found cash scattered, a politician's aide on the phone in the hallway, and Linda and Derek on the ground in cuffs while Mr. Patterson stood in the doorway holding one of his garden gnomes like a trophy. The sergeant looked at the ceiling smoke detector hiding the camera. Everything on tape. I nodded. Every word. The months that followed were a masterclass in how fast empires built on lies can collapse. The footage from my porch, Deacon's cloned hard drive, and the crystal-clear office confession made the prosecutor's case ironclad. Local news ran the story nonstop. HOA president and husband indicted in murder-for-profit scheme. Chestnut Grove went from sleepy suburb to national punchline overnight. Sentencing day was pure poetry. Play the victim until the judge read the attempted murder charge aloud. Her face crumpled like cheap paper. And conspiracy. Linda got 7 for her role plus the assault with the letter opener and that original false police report. Councilman Reynolds took 8 years and a lifetime of disgrace. His name now local shorthand for crooked politician. Oak Ridge Holdings was seized, assets frozen. Every family they'd bullied received restitution, checks with interest. The old HOA was dissolved in an emergency meeting that felt more like a funeral. A new, stripped-down association formed with one simple bylaw. Mr. Patterson himself proposed, leave each other the hell alone. He got elected president by landslide, mostly as a joke, but the old man took the job seriously. His first act was to cancel every pending fine in the neighborhood. Kids' swing sets reappeared. The sterile perfection gave way to actual life. For me, the healing took longer. His letter opener faded to a thin white line, but the memory of neighbors calmly plotting my death lingered like exhaust fumes. I'd catch myself checking the driveway every time a silver sedan passed. Then one Saturday, I dragged the truck into the garage, rolled up my sleeves, and got to work. I tapped out the dent on the hood, sanded the clipboard scar off the fender until the metal was smooth again, laid down fresh primer, then those deep cherry red coats. As the final buff brought the paint to a mirror shine, I wasn't just fixing metal, I was sanding away every ounce of fear and rage they'd left on me. Tommy's truck was whole again. A few weeks later, an envelope arrived with no return address. Inside was a handwritten note from a young couple who'd been forced out 2 years earlier. We never knew the truth until we saw the news. The check from the receiver let us buy a real home with a yard for our kids. You gave us our future back. Tucked inside was a photo, 2 little kids laughing on a brand new swing set. I stood in the driveway holding that picture and looked at my truck gleaming under the sun, not a scratch in sight. I slid behind the wheel, turned the key, and let the 390 V8 roar to life. The deep baritone rumble rolled through my chest like a promise kept. Justice isn't always loud. An engine that refuses to stay silent. In the end, the real Karen wasn't the loud one swinging a clipboard. It was the quiet greed hiding behind every rule for your own good. Lesson: document everything, stay patient, and let their own arrogance write the ending. When bullies think they own the neighborhood, hand them the rope and watch them hang themselves with it. True freedom isn't beige conformity. It's the cherry red middle finger that refuses to fade.